for those of you who are like juniors, or you weren't here last year for current events, what you need to know is that every time we have a guest speaker, your homework assignment is up on the board. You have to write out a one-page summary of what we discussed here in class. So you want to be taking notes so that you remember. So you should have something to write with, something to write on. This is my contribution time. Okay, let's pray, and we'll jump into stuff today. All right, dear Lord Jesus, we thank you for our time here in class. We pray for just this time of discussion. We talk about the Constitution. We're thankful that we live in a republic where we can worship and honor you as we see fit. We pray that these freedoms will be preserved, and I pray that we'll learn about that even here today. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Okay, as we talked about last week, today is Constitution Day, and I invited Chad Kent to come and talk to us about the Constitution. We'll get to that probably about second quarter. Kind of in between first and second quarter. But Chad is a world-renowned speaker. Spoken at several events that I've had the pleasure of attending. And he agreed to come here today and talk to all of you about the Constitution. So, Chad, that's all you want to do.
All right, we'll start here. How many of you got up today and thought you were just really jacked up and excited because you knew you guys to talk about the Constitution this morning? Yeah! I like her already. Even though you gave me a hard time coming in. So you guys all got your Constitution Day cards written out and everything like that? Anything? Okay, good. Only me. I actually did get up and get excited about it. I was kind of rocking out on the way here because I get excited about this, and I want to hopefully help you figure out why that is so you can get excited about it too. The bottom line is, well, is there anything you guys like to do, like outside of school? What do you like to do? Wow, a lot of boring people.
Yeah.
No, what? All right, what's your name?
Haley.
Haley.
Haley with a K.
Kaylee?
Yeah.
I'm going to be picking on you a lot.
Okay.
So what do you like to do outside of class?
Fun stuff.
Thank you.
Like-
Very specific.
Yeah. Like sports and
Right.
just other activities.
Probably sports, music, theater, video games, anything like that. Well, any of those things without freedom is impossible. So I get excited, I get jacked up about talking about the Constitution because I know that anything I like to do that's fun starts here. Without this, it doesn't happen. So you want to sort of look at this as the foundation of all the cool things that you want to do. And we need to know this if we're going to defend our freedom, because I know we take it for granted because everybody my age and younger, that's all we've known. We've never known what it's like to not have freedom, so you kind of think that's the norm, but we're a wild exception in history. I have a friend of mine that grew up in Hungary, so they don't have one of these. They don't have a constitution that's there to protect their freedom. And I sat on her couch, she told me stories for hours about like people with, has anybody heard anybody criticize Barack Obama before? A couple? Yeah, it tends to happen. Well, she was telling me stories about people that did that in her country and then just poof, in the middle of the night they disappeared and nobody heard from them again. See, I kind of dig the fact that we have something that protects me from that not happening. And I kind of like to keep that from happening. So that's why I really like this Constitution. That's why I get so excited. And here's why I think that you all can have some fun with it, is, I don't know about you, but I hear the new pop culture bands and stuff like that, and they act like they're all edgy and all cool and stuff, because they run down the country and talk about how stupid our Constitution is. People like to say it's racist and it's outdated and all those different things. And they act like they're all hardcore and edgy and everything like that. There is nothing more safe for establishment than running down the Constitution right now. And frankly, I think it's cool. I don't know. I think it's awesome that that we're fighting for liberty and fighting for freedom, because that's the counterculture now. And the people that I work with, we have this little liberty army that goes around and it defends this Constitution, and they're all like your age, between your age and my age. I'm not that old, I promise. It looks it, but not really. that's the cool thing. Like, there are a few more things that give me more of an adrenaline rush or a high, more so than standing up for what's right and standing up for what I believe in and standing up for liberty. Like, it's an awesome thing. There's so many different ways that you can do it, so many different ways that you can get involved, and I promise you, you will never have more fun. We're on Twitter. Anybody do Twitter here? Oh, this is going to be a long hour. Come on, you got to be honest. You tweet. There you go. I was wondering, I didn't know because I haven't done school for a long time. I didn't know if you tweeted attendance now or if it was if they checked it on Facebook or
It's more of Facebook.
You should Foursquare it.
Yeah.
Foursquare. I check in Kevin Thompson's class. That would be awesome. Hang on. We're using all that
Take out your
stuff.
phones and try it.
Was that a joke or?
It's the coolest thing though, because what we're doing is we're going after the people not going after, but we're standing up to the people in the media. We're standing up to the people that are in power. We're saying, we want you to defend this thing. We believe in what's right and true. We believe in traditional values and things like that. And it's one of the coolest things that I've ever been involved in. I've never gotten more of a rush than that. And I'll tell you one of the coolest experiences I've had in a while. I was out with a group. We were in Denver doing some training for people like get out the boat type stuff. And we had we'll call it a run-in with Occupy. Is everybody familiar with the Occupy movement? Yeah, they don't like us. And they think they're all cool, but they get supported and coddled by the media, and they don't realize how weak and ridiculous they are. So anyway, they came and they tried to occupy our hotel room, which was an entertaining moment. So we had a little clash with them, and then later in the night, we went to this karaoke club, and some of the kids from the Heritage Foundation got up. We had the whole karaoke place singing "God Bless the USA." It was amazing, because half the place was not us. And so we had all these just random people singing "God Bless the USA." One of the coolest things ever. So, you guys don't sound like that sounds like fun. Come on, going out causing trouble and this is the cool. You don't like this, do you?
No, I think this is how I have fun, and I don't understand.
Oh, well, okay, let me look at it this way. How many of y'all like the fact that your parents in the school tell you what to do all the time? Is anybody really excited about graduating because then you can start making your own decisions? It's okay to talk back. There's not like a glass. It's not like two-way glass. I can see you. Is anybody excited about like going to college or going wherever you're going next year because you get to start making your own decisions for yourself? Pretty nice, huh?
Or are you guys depressed that you won't have me again?
Yeah. Here's the thing though, if you think it's frustrating having your parents make decisions for you or the school, just wait till the government starts trying to run your life because you have no idea how bad it can get. They will get into every aspect of your life, and I already see it in times that I want to do something and they won't do it. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I like doing this is because I'm the type of person where if you tell me what to do, I will intentionally not do it, just out of spite. What's your name?
Rebecca.
See, I think you and I have a connection, Rebecca. Every time I say, do you like to do this, she says yes. I think you and I would get along real well. But there's this guy, the mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, that he's telling people that they can't drink soda because it makes them fat and everything like that. And I'm the type of person that I like to eat well, and I like to run and be active. But I've actually considered stopping running and just going, I just want to get some big gulps and go to New York and be like, hey Michael, check it out, man. Yeah, see, that would be illegal in New York.
Out of my cold dead hand.
Yes. Yeah. See, that's the type of person I am, though. I want to go to Bloomberg and just like check it out, and just out of spite. So that's why I like doing this. So anyhow, I don't want to be boring and talk to y'all the whole time. So do you guys have any questions about it or anything that doesn't make sense in the Constitution, or do you seriously you can talk? Because I want this to be fun. I want you guys like on Tuesday to be saying, "Man, you got to bring that guy back. I want to do the Constitution again." All right, well then you're gonna have to listen to what I come up with. Okay. Have you guys had? Do you still do permission slips or back on that? You guys still do that? You don't tweet. You're not like, hey, have your parents tweet me that it's okay.
No.
Okay.
Got that.
Good. We'll start here. You guys have to get permission from your parents to do things. Like if you guys want to go on a field trip or whatever, you have to go back and your parents have to say, look, you have permission to do this. They have to have a written form, right? Well, basically, that's what the Constitution is, if you ever want to know. If you're ever curious about where the origin of this is. The whole idea is we're all created equal, so nobody has a a reason to tell other people what to do or to rule over other people, right? So what the founders did is they got together and they said, just they're all, we're all people, we're all equal, so we're going to get together and we're going to say, you know what, government, you have permission to do this list of things. Here's what you can do. And that's it. If it's not in this list, you don't have the authority to do it. And the nice thing is that they have an amendment process. If they want to do something that's not in here, they have to come right back to us, you, me, everybody, and ask for permission to do that. And so the idea is you all are in control, not the government. And we need to always recognize that they're there to serve us. They're there to make our rights work better, to make us more secure. So that we should be able to do, because of the fact that we have a government and we have this, we should be able to do more, make our own choices better. And a good example of that is, if there wasn't a government, it's very hard to protect your rights. Because anybody can do anything to you at any time, right? You have to be I always make it like, if you're going to protect your property, you always have to be sitting on your porch with a shotgun, like, get off my lawn, that type of thing. Man, 8 o'clock's rough, isn't it? I should have done the 2 o'clock one, that would have been easier. But you have to stand there and protect your property all the time because somebody could come and take it, and if they come and take it, what are you going to do? Right? There's no court to go to or no police. But when you create a government, that means that we can set up a court system and police that will help us so that we can go get a job and do different things so that then we can actually use our freedom to a greater extent. So this whole thing with having a government should make us have more freedom than we would otherwise. That's why it's cool. And so, again, they work for us. They're there to create more freedom for us. And I want to actually show you how this works in terms of hierarchy. Because I think a lot of times, doesn't it kind of feel like if somebody's in government or somebody is at the city council or whatever, they're sort of a little bit above you? That's not really supposed to be how it works. They work for you. Never forget that. If you remember nothing else, they work for you. And what came first? The Constitution or the people? The government or the people?
This one's not difficult, guys.
This one is not difficult.
People.
People, right? Otherwise we wrote the Constitution, right? So the people came first. I gotta get used to writing with this thing. And they wrote the Constitution. Right? Constitution creates the government, right? You guys have studied this enough to... Have you gone through it at all?
Not really, but we covered a little bit.
A little bit?
Some basics.
This sets up everything. It tells you that there's going to be a Congress, a president, how they're elected, everything. So this sets up everything, how the laws are going to be passed. So anything like that came from the Constitution. So laws and the politicians. What this tells us is the hierarchy of importance. The people are more important than the Constitution because we wrote it. We're the only ones that can amend it, right? The Constitution creates the laws and the politicians, so any law is not going to supersede the Constitution. No politician's better than the Constitution. So any politician that says, well, a good example is our president seems to like executive orders. He seems to think that if he really thinks something's important, then he can circumvent the lawmaking process and just issue an executive order and make that law. Well, he's not better than the Constitution. He's actually below it. And not to mention that, he's below us. He serves us. So I like the way that going through this way helps you to see the order of things. Actually, I was reading the Constitutional Convention a while back because that's how I like to party. And Ben Franklin actually put this really well. He said, they're talking about term limits, and they said these politicians, they should have to be put down with the people again every once in a while. They should have to come back and join the people in our lower ranks. And he got up and he's like, no, if we kick these people out of office and they come back, they're not taking a step down. They're taking a step up. They've gone from being the servant to being the master. We need to send them back to their districts so that they can enjoy being in charge again. So I'm trying to impress on you that you all are in charge, and you need to take responsibility for it. And part of that is knowing the Constitution. Because if we don't know what's in here, then we do become kind of subservient to the politicians because they can tell us that anything's in here and we'll believe it because we don't know. So we need to take action and be responsible for having our own freedom.
So from our beginning lecture that you all remember so well, ignorance leads to what? When it comes to government? Not destruction. Starts with the T. Tyranny, yes.
And I can't remember which founder, I can't remember his name, but he was in one of the first battles against the British, and he said, I think he was the first Virginian to take a shot at the British, and he said, look, an enlightened people will never submit to having what was built for their freedom used for tyranny. Meaning, if you know what's in here, you will always fight for it. And when you know how awesome it is to be free, and you've seen it, and you look at the other side, you will always fight for this because it's the coolest thing ever. And he said, part of that is knowing what's in it. And if you guys seriously study this thing, it's not as complicated as people think. Look, this has quotes, amendments, and everything. This is the whole thing. It's like less than a magazine article. If you read it and understand it, you will always fight for it because you'll realize how awesome it is to be free. Like I said, just go talk to somebody that lives in communism, and you'll see you don't want to go there. You don't even want to mess with it. Like, I'm losing my names on quotes, but I can't remember who. Noah Webster, I think it was, that said, not that you won't care, could be. I'll say I said it. Said that liberty is somebody who truly loves liberty is going to be very guarded of it because they know how precious it is. So they're going to build this huge barricade in front of it, and anytime anybody even comes close to it, they're going to pounce on that because they don't want to even give up an ounce of that liberty. And that's the way we need to be if we want to continue to be free. So, how are we doing so far? You guys got to talk back to me. I don't do well with this.
Good.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm trying to have fun with you all. Come on. No questions so far? All right, then we're going to get right into how it works. All right. So we mentioned how we have a government to protect us from other people, right? James Madison explained, hey, look, if people were angels, we wouldn't need a government because people would just always do the right thing. They treat each other nicely. We don't have to worry about it because everybody be honest and cool and everything like that. But bad thing is there's some evil people in the world, and they want to do bad things to us. So a good thing to have a government to help protect us, right? Said, but the flip side of that is, if we had angels, great people who could come down and govern us, then we wouldn't need to limit the government because we'd always know the people in power would do cool things and they would never take advantage of us and everything like that. But don't have those either. So we probably need to put limits on the government. You have a question, Rebecca? No? Oh, you're just having fun? She gets extra credit.
We talked a little bit about this just last week. What's the primary purpose of the state is... Oh, come on. Do not embarrass me at this point.
It's right in the Declaration of Independence.
You will write this out 20 million times. The purpose, we talked about the purpose of the home, the purpose of the church, but the purpose of the state?
How they don't command.
No.
How they each have to take care of them.
One word.
Bible. Jesus.
Freedom.
Wow.
I
I
can tell
failed.
you need to cheat. It's in the Declaration of
Restraint.
Independence.
Restraint. That's what we're looking for.
Actually, John Locke would disagree with you.
Ooh.
John Locke, by the way, is a philosopher from England
We'll learn
around the
about it later.
1600s. And if you read Thomas Jefferson, you see a lot of John Locke in there. And John Locke said the purpose of laws is not to restrain or to restrict, but to enhance and enlarge freedom. And that's exactly where I got it. Sorry. That's a burst of bubble. But the reason why, that's where I got that whole thing of your freedom should be greater because we have a government. That whole idea that if we don't have a government, you have to sit on your porch with a shotgun to protect your rights and your family because you might come back and they're gone. But when we have a government, you have police there to help you. So if somebody comes and steals your stuff, you can
See,
find
that's what we're saying by restraint.
Yeah, well, you're restraining people from doing bad
Right.
things to you.
So the freedom, we're assuming freedom already exists. God-given rights are there.
Correct,
We're
yeah.
restraining those who are trying to invade those rights or take away
Exactly.
those God-given rights.
Exactly. And you have, well, we're going off on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, you have certain rights, right? Life, liberty, and property. Right? Because let's just look at it from this classroom. Let's say that you all are just, there's no government, you all are kind of hanging out, doing your own thing, right? What right, let's say, do Rebecca and Kaylee have to get together and say, you know what, we're going to tell the rest of them what religion they have to be. We're going to tell them what everybody can say. Anybody else with that? Anybody else have a problem with that? See, he's my counterculture guy. But see, for Rebecca and Kaylee, they think it's pretty awesome because they're in charge. But who are they to tell everybody else what to do, right? That's the whole idea. So we all have. So what if we got, let's say, this half of the room got together and told this half of the room what to do? Is that all right?
Yeah. Nope. No.
Oh, I see. This half of the room thinks so, but this half not so much, right?
That's what we're gonna do.
And it doesn't matter how much of the room we put on this side. Is it ever right?
No.
Or let's say everybody gets together and tells Kaylee what to do.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
See, everybody thinks that's all right but her. And that's that thing where you start to respect free speech, freedom of religion and stuff like that. Because you got this movie now that's really unpopular that they say caused all these riots in the Middle East, right? Everybody wants to tell that guy what to say. Well, everybody thinks that's fantastic except him. But what if you're him? Always think about that when you're trying to force somebody else what to do. It's never a good idea, and that's where your rights come in. We have rights to life, liberty, and property, and we should be able to exercise those right up until the point where you infringe on someone else's rights. And that's the idea that we have behind this, is we want you to have liberty to do what you want to the greatest extent possible, but you never have the right to step on somebody else's toes or force them what to do, force them to do what you want, because, again, think about if they were trying to force you to do what they want. Never a cool idea. And as I told you, I'm not big on that. You tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite just to justify it. Me and Rebecca are going to do that. Does that make sense so far? Because I really want you guys to understand this. Because if you really understand this Constitution, you will love it as much as I do. Because you will see how much it helps your life. You keep laughing, but you don't say anything.
Oh.
Sounds about right.
Does she ever talk? Alright, I want to show you a couple of things. Okay, the whole purpose behind the Constitution, like I say, is we needed to have we need to limit the government. But the problem is, how do we give them the power to do what they need to do without giving them enough power to do bad things to us, right? Have you ever heard that whole idea, how do you police the police? Like, we have these police, but what if the police do bad things? We need a police for the police, and then a police for the police for the police, right? It's a really hard thing to do. Same thing here is, how do you govern the government? Then we need somebody to govern the government, to keep them in control, and then a government for the government. So the whole idea for this was to find a way to give that government some power, but then also put in some twists to restrict it. So they use power against itself to make sure that this, as long as we adhere to this, it never has enough power to do something bad to you. And it should never have the power to take away your rights. Our rights are gifts from God. And that's why, by the way, rights are different than laws, is because the whole idea is if somebody violates your rights, they're not messing with you, they're messing with God. It's a whole different deal. So, just like no other person should be able to violate your rights, your government shouldn't be able to violate your rights. And so they were trying to figure out, how do we restrict that power? Because power is a corrupting force, right? We all know this. I'm just going to talk to you. So, we know that power is a corrupting force. That's just human nature. I mean, have you ever gotten on student council or been captain of the football team or whatever sports team you're on, and you start thinking, I'm not so bad after all. It's hard for it not to go to your head a little bit, right? And so that's just human nature, and they had to try to work with that and make it, and keep the government, once they got it, once the government had that power, from taking more and more and more until they were running your life. And so what they did is they basically built a pyramid, is the structure of our government. It actually works a lot like this. I'm trying to modify this a little bit. Oh yes, this is where you take notes. You have, if I can, I'll come back to this. You have three branches of the federal government: the legislative, executive, and judicial, up there, and the people down here. That's Mr. Thompson, and that's me. Notice how handsome I am. And then, so this is the people. We're the foundation of this country. So we make up the foundation of the pyramid. We're supposed to have the most political power, right? We wrote the Constitution. Any power that the government has, it has because we granted it to them. So we have the most power, and any power we've given them is only because we lent it to them. So so the most power lies right here. When you get up a little bit, this is where you're going to find your local governments. So the second tier of the pyramid would be your county, your city councils, school boards. those types of local governments, they should have the second most power in our country. Why is that? Well, because they're the closest to us. They understand what our lives are like, so they're better able to make decisions, and they're easier for us to hold accountable. We don't want people to have power unless there's something there to counteract it, to keep them in check. And your local city council members, they're going to see you at the mall or a football game or something, and so if they vote to take away your freedom, they know they're going to have to see you, and that you are going to talk to them, and probably not happily. So they're a lot more likely to represent our interests. So if you go up one more level, we're going to hit the, hit the states right up here. They're a little bit further away from us than the local governments. Like, you probably know your local state rep and senator, or have seen them, but they're a little harder to get a hold of, right? They don't necessarily live in your town, so they're hard to hold accountable. So they should get a little bit less power. When you get all the way up to your federal government, they don't really know anything about you. Probably, I don't know if you, what, Paul Ryan's your rep, is that?
Well, we've got Tammy Baldwin and Paul Ryan,
Right.
both districts represented here.
But you probably don't know them. Maybe one or two of you met them, but they don't really know your life. And it's really hard for you to get a hold of them. Like, if you wanted to go talk to Paul Ryan right now, probably going to be hard. That type of thing. So they're not necessarily as accountable to you. So their power is harder to check, so they should have the least amount of power. So if you draw this pyramid up, it shows you that the further away you get from the people, the less power a government can be trusted with, because they're harder to hold accountable. Remember, they're there to serve us. So we want to be able to keep a tight leash on them and make sure that we know what they're doing. Because, for example, a good way to look at this, if the federal government did something that we don't like, how hard is it? Let's say this group, just us in the classroom, we don't like it and we want to stop it. How hard is it for us to get Congress's attention? You don't think so? Why not?
Do things to get their attention, like protests and stuff?
We can, but if it's just us, do you think they're going to listen to us? Probably not.
So they can ask me.
So, but if the school board did something we didn't like, and just us went down there, do you think we could get their attention? Yeah, because 100 people, like, well, even 30 people or whatever's in the classroom is a big percentage of whatever their constituency is here. And so we can have a huge effect just at a local city council meeting, whereas if we go to Congress, they're like, oh yeah, there's some people out there. We don't care. So that's why we want to let them have things that are more specific to our lives, because we can affect them, right? Now let's think human nature. I want to see how, yeah, let's do this last one. I only got a couple minutes here. Think human nature. People are self-interested, right? They care more about themselves than they do about other people. That's just natural. I mean, we try to fix that as Christians. We try to think about our fellow man and everything like that. But it's just human nature. Like, if you break your arm, you really care. If your neighbor breaks his arm, you're like, oh yeah, it's too bad, right? It's just human nature. So if we know that these people are always going to do what's best for themselves first, right? People in Congress, they're always going to do what's best for themselves. True? Nothing you can do to fix that, because it's human nature. There's just no way to fix that. So if we know that they're always going to do what's best for themselves, how do we get them to represent us? Because they're never going to do what's best for us first, are they? So how do we fix that problem? Remember, it's human nature. This will show you how brilliant this Constitution is, by the way. No ideas? It's a very tough question to answer. And I would ask you, but I told you this before class, didn't I? I should have waited on that one. The only way you're ever going to get these people or these people or these people to represent these people is to make sure that these people are these people. We have to make sure that the representatives are the citizens. They can't be any different from us, and the more that they're different from us, the less likely they are to represent us. And that was the whole idea of this, is, again, we're talking about how there's no right for one person to rule over another. So the whole Constitution is based on that premise that we should be able to rule ourselves. We should be able to make our own decisions. So we take a few people out from down here and we take them up here so that they can govern themselves. Now, anything that separates them from us is going to make us less well represented. So if they get special, right now they get special retirement benefits, and they get special healthcare benefits and really high pay and all these different things like that. So all of a sudden their interests aren't the same as ours, right? So if you think about things like Social Security, that's been sort of let go by pretty much all the politicians. That's nonpartisan, right? Find one that does, you know. But if they thought that they were going to have to live off that, if these people thought they were going to have to live off it the same way these people do, it wouldn't look the way it does. But it's not really their problem now. Do you see how it changes? So we want to make sure that we don't allow them to exempt themselves from anything. They have to be living under every law that they pass. And here's a good reason why. Because that is the single greatest protection for your freedom that you will ever have, is to make sure that these people live under the laws they pass, because nobody in their right mind will ever vote to take away their own freedom. Like, we got to vote. Kaylee, we're voting. Everybody, we're going to put you in prison for the rest of your life. You voting for or against?
Against.
Yeah. Anybody else voting for that, to imprison themselves? Probably not, right? So if they'll never do it to themselves, and it has to apply to them, they're never going to do it to you. So we need to make sure and hold them accountable that they can't vote to exempt themselves from a law. You notice with the healthcare law, you know who's exempted? You know who doesn't have to participate? Those people. That's not good. Whether you like the law or not is not the issue. The issue is they should have to live under it, because that will make them shepherd it and use it better than they would otherwise, because they're never going to do something to themselves, to you, that they're not going to want done to themselves. And that's what we want. We want them taking care of us as well as they take care of themselves. Does that make perfect sense so far? Okay, very cool. I really thought I'd start getting questions at this point. It's like, you guys should be awake by now. Okay, I want to tell you one other thing about this. This is also hugely important. Okay, so these people are always going to do it in their interests, and they have to be affected by laws. This also tells us how much power they should have. It tells us what the scope of the federal government is, and every government underneath it. Okay? Because if they have to be affected by it, then that means that the federal government can only do things that affects the entire country as a whole. That means they can't do state-specific laws or group of people-specific laws. Why? Because if they do that, then not every representative that's voting for it is affected by it. So let's say they're voting for whether or not they're going to build a new museum in Kansas, okay? Well, do you think that the representatives here in Wisconsin care so much about whether or not that museum goes into Kansas? I mean, not really, right? But what if they're talking about, hey, somebody's trying to invade Kansas, it's a foreign country, and they're trying to invade us, should we defend Kansas? Now they probably care, because if the nation gets fractured and taken apart into some huge war, that affects all of us. So that's something the federal government can do, because we want them only voting on things that affect themselves. Does that make sense? Perfect sense? So yeah, that's where the general welfare clause comes in. They're saying that that the federal government can do things that's in the general welfare of the entire country, not the specific welfare of an individual state or an individual group of people. So giving the government only that much power helps to make sure that they're never going to do something to you that they wouldn't do to themselves.
Let me throw in a question. You mentioned the general welfare. What is it, 2 years ago now, I was up in Madison, and, no, actually it was here, Janesville. And I think it was Herb Cole who was speaking. And I got into a discussion, you might not believe this, about President Obama's health insurance bill. And he claimed, this other person I was chatting with, that of course it's constitutional because the federal government is supposed to guarantee the general welfare.
That's not at all right.
Because welfare means we give stuff to people.
No, welfare means general good well-being is a better way to put it. The general well-being. So they're interested more in the general well-being rather than specific well-being. And in this case, it wouldn't be the general It wouldn't, general is the more important word than welfare. In this case, it wouldn't be general because it's more specific, because you're actually taking from certain people to give to others, which again, you can't do. Because that's not in the well-being, not for the well-being of the people that you're taking from. You don't want to do that, because again, let's say Kaylee is doing a little better than everybody else. How about we take her stuff and we just kind of divvy it up amongst the rest of you? Everybody else cool with that? Yeah, probably. How are you feeling about that?
Gee.
Not so good, right? Because she has a right to her property. This is what we don't want to do. If I can emphasize anything, we don't want to do that because, again, when you're that one person, it isn't cool. And so we have all these people that say, oh yeah, take from the rich, take from the rich. Well, when you're rich, it isn't so cool because you're like, I work for this, this is mine. And we want to make sure we're never doing to somebody else what we wouldn't do to ourselves. I mean, golden rule works in government, great. Don't do to somebody else what you wouldn't do to yourself, period. And so that's where the general welfare clause comes in. It tells us they can't do anything that doesn't affect the entire country. And there's 4 things that Madison said that the federal government's supposed to do. And if you'll notice, it's all these things. And if you look at Article 1, Section 8, they all relate to these 4 things. Immigration, national defense, foreign diplomacy, and making sure the states don't go to war with each other. That's it. Those are the powers of the federal government. Notice we do a little more than that now. But those are the 4 powers that the federal government can do because those are the only things that affect every single one of us in this country. Basically, Madison put it this way in the Federalist Papers. He says the federal government is supposed to do things that are external to the country, and the states deal with everything that's internal to the country. And the only exception to that is interstate commerce, which means that there are 2 or 3 states involved, so one state can't make laws for another state. Because that wouldn't be fair for Wisconsin to say, hey, Illinois and Minnesota, you're going to do things our way. So anything that affects all 3 of those states...
Well, I like the idea right now of Wisconsin telling Illinois.
I would too, because have you seen our government in Illinois? But you can't, if there's something like that that involves 3 states trading with each other, there has to be a referee, right? An independent referee that can decide who's going to do what. So the federal government can do that to make sure that we have general cohesion with the states. But outside of that, everything the federal government does is outside of our borders. So making sure that we're all safe, we all like that. We all like not being invaded. We have to speak with one voice from a foreign diplomacy standpoint. We can't have 50 states going and making 50 different treaties, right? And we have to have a uniform way of allowing new people to become citizens. That's all they're there to do. Isn't there? When you think about what our government does today, isn't it amazing that those are the only 4 things that are allowed in this? I'll give you one more story and then I'll let it go, just to bring that home. There's a clause in here that says that the federal government has to meet once every year. Why would they demand that they meet once every year? I wondered that, so I went back and looked it up. The reason is because they want them to be there for a check on the president. But they were worried these people wouldn't have enough to do. Rufus King stood up in the Constitutional Convention and said, you want them to be there once a year, what will these people do? Have you seen how much power we've given them? They're going to go set a couple taxes and they'll be done. That's how little power this thing has. And yet now they're there cranking stuff out on a regular basis. It's crazy. And one other thing I wanted to do, and I don't have time. Let's try. Okay. Maybe.
Just stay here, though.
Okay. We talked about the whole museum being built in Kansas. And people here in Wisconsin wouldn't care, right? Because it's not really, it doesn't affect them, right? Well, here's why that's a problem. Is if it doesn't affect them, you might have a lobbyist or a special interest group or a corporation come over to this congressman who's not affected and say, you know what, Mr. Congressman, if you vote for that museum, I might be able to kick in a little something to your campaign. Or whatever it is that they do now to do little kickbacks, right? So now where is his self-interest? He's got a financial interest in voting for that museum now, doesn't he? Whereas it might be horrible for the people. It might be a complete waste of your money that you worked hard for him to come and take your money away from you and give it to this museum. But that's not his problem anymore. Do you see how that can distort? He's not representing your interests anymore now, is he? Now, not every congressman is going to do that, but you know it's human nature to be very, very hard to turn that down. If somebody comes to you, Kaylee, and says, man, I'll give you a new MacBook right now if you vote for this bill, you're thinking, well, it doesn't really do me any harm if I vote for it, but if I vote for this and I get a MacBook, that's hard to turn down. Even if you're a good, honest person, when you went to DC, that's tough. So we want to make sure that he can't do this, because if they're talking about whether or not Wisconsin gets invaded, and they go, hey, Mr. Congressman, hey, Kaylee, I'll give you a new MacBook Pro if you vote for this bill to imprison you for life. Pass, exactly. That's why we want them voting on things that affect them personally. Make sense? Did anybody get anything positive out of this, or did I just ramble? Because can you tell I get really excited about this? Because I like being free, and I don't like people telling me what to do. And I know you all are the same way, even if you're not talking. I know you don't like having people dictate your life. And the reason why I get excited about this and get excited about going around, I wish I could tell you more about some of the stuff my friends and I are doing to fight back and do things like that. But it's so fun. If you guys get involved, and you can right now, on Twitter, on Facebook, people your age, people I know are doing stuff. So get involved and have some fun with it.
All right, thank you. Just real quick, remember tomorrow, the homework that we do today, we do tomorrow, plus your one-page summaries. And if you drew the little triangle, that takes up a lot of lines on your paper. So awesome. Anyway, but seniors, don't forget, lunchtime meeting. You're dismissed.